My family is trying to make my favored sister the centerpiece of my wedding, and I'm plotting my retaliation. I'm getting married, and my family insists that my golden child sister should walk down the aisle in a white dress, stealing the spotlight. I'm writing this while on vacation, and it feels therapeutic to finally let it all out. My husband is more excited about this than the resort cocktails. This is a throwaway account since I don't use Reddit, and my husband, a Reddit enthusiast, wants no connection to this post. He says since it's my family drama, I should tell the story, though he's peering over my shoulder to assist. I'm not a lawyer, so I'm unsure about legalities, but I explicitly do not permit this story to be shared or reposted elsewhere. To explain why things escalated and why we reacted the way we did, some background is necessary. Apologies for the lengthy tale. My parents have always shown blatant favoritism toward my sister. This wasn't subtle. If my sister accused me of something, they'd believe her instantly and punish me. If I accused her, even with clear proof, they'd dismiss it and give her a lighter consequence while lecturing me. My birthday cake was always her favorite flavor, never mine, and they'd claim ignorance about my preferences. They spent more on her than on me, and we'd go where she wanted, even for events meant to celebrate me. My sister grew up spoiled and resentful of me. She treated me like a punching bag. Initially, she mostly ignored me, but in our early teens, her behavior turned vicious. I'm not sure what triggered it, but she lost all her friends around that time and her attitude worsened. Did her friends move away? Did they ditch her for being unkind? I don't know, we weren't close, and my parents only bragged about her successes, never mentioning her struggles. They constantly criticized my flaws, using them as fodder for mockery. All I knew was that she had no friends, as I saw her alone at our shared school. With no friends of her own, she fixated on my social life. I was fairly popular and had friends, which seemed to enrage her. I went from an occasional target to someone she wanted to destroy. She accused me of all sorts of things and spread lies about my friends, claiming they were troublemakers. My parents banned me from hanging out with them, saying things like, "Your sister says they're bad influences," or "Why do you want to abandon family time? Be more like her." My extended family offered some relief from isolation. My cousins and I bonded despite slight age differences, as most relatives lived in the same town. Once, they invited me to an event, but I sadly said I wasn't allowed to go anywhere. Without thinking, I blurted out to my cousins that I couldn't have friends because my sister didn't. That comment reached the adults, who apparently confronted my parents later. It was worth it, even though I got grounded for a month and scolded for lying. After that, my parents eased up slightly, and my sister switched schools. She begged to transfer, likely humiliated that our extended family knew she had no friends. Though the new school was farther and costlier, my parents agreed instantly. There, she made new friends but never stopped targeting me. I think she was furious I'd exposed her social struggles and realized how much power she had to ruin my life. My existence remained miserable. Her friends would visit and taunt me, and my parents called it playful teasing. They were terrible hosts to my friends, so I never invited anyone over. My sister accused my friends of stealing, and my parents believed her every time. They never dared act this way with relatives, so I grew close to my cousins. Then I got my first boyfriend. Despite my parents' pressure, I refused to bring him home. We broke up once, and he found me to tell me my sister had flirted with him. She'd worn revealing clothes, batted her eyes, and badmouthed me while praising herself. Furious, he came to me to set things straight. Naturally, my sister told my parents a different story, claiming he'd flirted with her, but she'd rejected him out of loyalty to me. Guess who they believed? My boyfriend wasn't perfect, but I stayed with him partly out of spite. As a teen enduring constant mistreatment, I was bitter and angry, hating my sister as much as I hated myself. Since appearances haven't come up yet, I'll address them now, as they played a role. My sister was overweight like my parents because they showed love through food, extra portions, sweets, you name it. I, however, was always slim, partly because punishment often meant no treats or snacks. Looks aside, my sister's spoiled, entitled personality made her unappealing. She never had to work for anything. My parents gave her whatever she wanted, so even her flirting was clumsy. She wasn't some stunning beauty, and even as an insecure teen, I didn't believe my boyfriend would cheat with her. Still, my parents banned me from dating such a terrible guy. I tried to keep the relationship going secretly, but it fizzled out. I had another boyfriend later, but my sister claimed he flirted with her too after he rejected her advances. Again, my parents believed her and said it proved I had poor judgment in choosing partners. That relationship also fell apart under the strain. In high school, I gained a reputation for casual makeouts without committing to relationships, but thankfully, that never reached my parents or sister. Meanwhile, my sister brought one guy home during this time. My parents praised him endlessly, asking why I couldn't find someone like him. When he stopped coming around, they suddenly labeled him a deceitful jerk who'd misled her. The double standards continued. She had more allowance, later curfews, and freedom to go anywhere while I was tightly controlled. If I pointed it out, they'd say it was because she was older. But when I reached her age, the rules didn't change. They'd deny saying it or claim I wasn't trustworthy like her, citing my bad friends and partners as proof. As my sister's graduation approached, she had no scholarships and got into a mediocre college. My parents never shared her rejections, only her successes, so I don't know which schools she applied to. She had poor grades. We celebrated her rare B's while I consistently earned high marks. They saw no reason to celebrate mine, saying, "You always get good grades, so what's the point?" They promised to pay for her entire college experience and made a huge fuss over her. She was leaving, which I thought would ease my life, but it didn't. She came home every other weekend, always stirring up trouble, like claiming something was stolen from her room. My restrictions remained strict. When my graduation neared, my mom sat me down. My sister is a year older than me. She said I should work after high school and wait until my sister finished college to see if they could afford to help me, as they were funding her education. If I stayed home, I'd have to pay rent, bills, and for all my expenses. I mentioned student loans, but she vaguely said they'd decide if a college was worth my debt, citing their concern for my poor judgment. I didn't ask how they'd stop me from getting loans, and scholarships weren't even mentioned. They never believed in my abilities or knew my grades. I didn't react. I just said, "Okay." My mom seemed surprised, maybe expecting me to lash out so they could justify denying me college. My dad tried the same talk, but I stayed emotionless. I'd never expected them to pay for my education after years of their neglect. I'd been preparing for college on my own, studying hard since I saw it as my only path to freedom. With limited social outlets, I had plenty of time to focus. I worked tirelessly and earned a full scholarship to a solid university, not Ivy League, but respectable. To prevent my sister and parents from sabotaging me, I announced my success on social media, thanking them publicly to trap them. They couldn't back out without explaining to the family why not. At first, they bragged about my achievement, but when my sister came home, their tone shifted. They revealed she was struggling in college and warned that if she, the smarter one, was failing, I'd fare worse. I held firm. College was my escape. I found joy in limited contact with my parents, citing financial constraints since they refused to help. I avoided introducing boyfriends to them, and my sister dropped out of college. No fanfare, so I knew she didn't graduate. She moved back home, paying no rent or bills, which my parents excused as different. She got a job at my mom's company, likely through favoritism. I took pride in rising above it all. Around this time, I met my husband. He's the type who acts in the moment, unlike me, a doormat who overthinks and regrets not speaking up. I cry when I'm angry, but he claps back instantly. He loves resolving drama as much as stirring it, and if he doesn't react immediately, watch out. He's plotting something bigger. He wanted to post this on a nuclear revenge subreddit, but insists our plan isn't that extreme. People were surprised I fell for him, but I loved that he did what I couldn't. He's kind to those who treat him well, and I admire his strength. When we planned our wedding, we prioritized a dream European honeymoon over a lavish ceremony due to our budget. We chose my hometown for the wedding since my family was concentrated there, and his was scattered. We lived close enough to manage planning with weekend visits, and our work flexibility helped. We sent save the dates and announced our engagement. My parents demanded to meet my fiancé, and though I wanted to refuse, I struggled to stand up to them. Distance had softened my view of their behavior, making me wonder if they weren't so bad. My husband was thrilled at the opportunity. He went prepared, even buying a discreet recorder to capture everything. He'd planned to reject my sister's inevitable flirting and share the evidence with our family. But when he met them, instead of flirting, my sister and parents sat him down. They expressed discomfort with him and offered to pay for our wedding, on one condition. My sister would walk down the aisle first, in a white dress at our venue, with photos, a cake later, the works. They justified it by saying it was only fair for her to have the experience since the younger sister shouldn't marry first. Now my husband takes over. Hey, it's the vengeful groom. I lurk on revenge subreddits, and when my fiancé is disrespected, I'm ready to unleash chaos. Even though she portrays me as quick-witted, I was floored when they proposed this nonsense. Like a gift so absurd even Troy would rethink the Trojan horse. Once my shock faded, I wanted to unleash a barrage of insults, but a devilish instinct told me to play along. I said I'd need to discuss it with my fiancé and left before my grin betrayed my plans. Back to me, the bride. My husband returned, beaming, and played the recording. I was stunned. Despite everything, I didn't think they'd go this far. Thankfully, his revenge-driven excitement kept me from spiraling. We're now plotting how to turn their absurd demand against them, ensuring my wedding remains mine. My husband and I had a blast scheming up ways to get back at them, tossing around ideas from wildly outlandish to ones we thought could actually work. After settling on a plan, we called his calm and rational sibling to run it by him. Our strategy involved giving out 2 venue addresses, one correct, one fake, and a few other tricks. His level-headed brother, however, wasn't thrilled. He admitted he'd never talk us out of seeking revenge, but cautioned that our plan could be tough to pull off, and some of our wilder ideas might even land us in legal trouble. After some back and forth, we opted for the least risky approach. Stick to our agreement, hire security, and ensure she couldn't get in. It wasn't exactly the most dramatic revenge, but it felt satisfying enough. My husband took the lead on this, though he made sure every step was discussed with me and reflected our joint decisions. He went back to my parents' place, probed a bit, and confirmed I wouldn't be okay with their ridiculous scheme. Still, he believed keeping the family together meant playing along to some extent. Knowing I hate confrontation, he figured I'd stay quiet in public to avoid a scene, especially with everyone around. Plus, marriage is a big deal, so who knew how I'd react under pressure? So he came up with a compromise. They'd cover some wedding costs. This would put me in a spot where I'd feel grateful and less likely to make a fuss, especially with family and guests around. My parents were shocked but agreed, while my sister practically danced with glee like a kid. My husband also cleverly spun a story that I was the one behind all this, claiming I was paranoid and controlling, even checking his phone to make sure he wasn't cheating. This made it critical that none of our plans were ever written down. All discussions about my sister stealing the spotlight at the wedding happened in person at their house. Thus began months of deception. My husband and I played along, letting my parents and sister think they were outsmarting me while we quietly milked their generosity. They wanted control over every detail, refusing to just pay and stay out of it. My husband would convince me to let go of things I cared about, like the music or color scheme, to keep me in check. But honestly, we didn't care much about the ceremony itself. When we'd visit to pick things like the menu or drinks, we'd deliberately choose the cheapest or second cheapest options. Later, my husband would secretly take my sister to see the same options, sighing about how we couldn't afford the best because we didn't want to burden my parents. Predictably, my sister would push them to splurge on the top-tier choices, and they'd reassure me not to worry about the cost. We pulled the same trick with flowers and the photographer. The wedding dress was a slight hiccup. My parents wanted me to wear a dress that wasn't my style and didn't suit me. We planned to agree but not actually wear it, but then my mom texted me about it, creating a paper trail. We had to firmly say no in writing and stick to it. My husband went to their place, acting like he'd try to fix it. My sister suggested ruining my chosen dress so I'd have no choice but to wear theirs. He pretended to go along with it, ensuring all their scheming stayed off the record by having me respond to any texts my sister sent him. They bought his story that I was overly controlling, which kept them from texting anything incriminating. I'll admit, I found it hilarious to be painted as some paranoid mastermind when I'm usually a pushover. Some might not like their partner badmouthing them to family, but I egged him on. It was too perfect. My sister even tried flirting with him, but he played it off ambiguously to keep up the act. We never let on about the security we'd hired, though he'd feed them just enough secret info to make them think he was on their side. Originally, we'd planned a simple courthouse wedding to save for our honeymoon. Instead, we ended up with a lavish, expensive wedding, barely spending a dime ourselves. We jokingly called it compensation for years of emotional grief. My husband admitted he had more fun outsmarting them than planning the wedding itself. I can still picture him grinning ear to ear, spending entire weekends at my parents' place discussing wedding details with a straight face. Their big plan was for my sister to swoop in at the last second, walking down the aisle in my place while everyone was seated, banking on the fact that I'd be too stunned to react. They even had my husband destroy my dress, using leftover fabric from alterations as fake proof. He showed it to them, claiming he had to rush back to calm me down. We kept security discreet. Guests only saw a woman checking names at the entrance. But once my parents arrived, we brought out a burly guard, tipped generously to keep quiet about our plan and to block my sister's entry. When the moment came, my dad signaled for things to start, thinking my sister was minutes away. My bridesmaids, following his earlier instructions, went along without checking with me. A friend who was in on the plan texted me to get ready. As the bridal music played, I walked through the doors. My dad went pale, looking behind me for my sister, but unable to see the entrance. His phone buzzed, her name on the caller ID. He mumbled something about an emergency and bolted, leaving me there. Gasps rippled through the crowd. My friend, playing her part, loudly asked what was wrong. I said, voice trembling, that he'd told me it wasn't supposed to be me walking down the aisle. I'd love to say my tears were pure acting, but they weren't. Despite knowing it was a setup, part of me was genuinely hurt that my dad would abandon me like that. My friend kept up the drama, shouting, "What do you mean it wasn't supposed to be you?" before rushing off to investigate, ensuring my dad couldn't come back and disrupt things. My mom eventually left too. My father-in-law, who was in on it, hurried to my side, guiding me down the aisle as whispers spread. By the time I reached my husband, he was grinning, whispering that my performance deserved an award and promising to make them regret their scheme. The ceremony went off without a hitch. My parents didn't return, and during the reception, I noticed guests slipping out and back in, likely checking on the drama but too polite to tell the bride. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to like, follow, subscribe, and turn on the bell icon so you never miss the next chilling tale.